Hi, my name is Steve Rachui. I am a premier field engineer specializing in management technologies. Today's discussion focuses on software updates in Configuration Manager Current Branch, specifically some of the changes that have happened in the way that we deliver software updates and new structure and so on. So in this session, I really want to talk about why some of those changes were introduced and kind of the case for change, when those changes were introduced and how they were rolled out. Focus on some terminology and understand the basics of that. Walk through the console and show you a few of the things that I'm talking about here, and then end up with just some considerations to think about, and then we'll wrap up this session. So in terms of the case for change, right, just a few points. So installation of updates has been an interesting thing for a while among different customers. The fact that customers have always been interested in getting updates deployed, but there are different priorities inside different customer organizations. And the result is when we would release patches, they would not always be applied in the way that we had hoped that they would. Customers would tend to pick and choose which updates they wanted to apply versus just applying what we provided, right? Some updates that were critical to future functionality might not have been applied consistently, might have been missed altogether, maybe servicing updates, those kinds of things. The result is lots of chaos in various customer environments, that some chaos would even prevent them from going forward and continuing patching. So really wanted to take a new approach at this, and that's what I'm going to describe today, right? Another reason that we needed to change is, again, just what I referred to, the validation testing of the updates really became very unpredictable as we looked at trying to make sure that when you applied our updates there wouldn't be any problems. There was just such a variety of test matrices that we had to factor in. It was really difficult. So the customer scenario where you have selective software updating, we might have produced a whole bunch and customers decided to pick half of them, or other customers would pick another half of them. It just wasn't consistent. Whenever we would test our updates, we would do so in a way that we assumed all the updates were applied. And so the testing matrix was really difficult, right? And so now, with the way that we have pooled updates, meaning that yes, we still release security updates standalone, but you're not going to be faced with that situation where you have 15 security updates and your organization picks and chooses which 7 of the 15 they want to deploy. If you're going to deploy our security updates, you're going to deploy the full month's worth of patches, right? This picking and choosing is something really gone, right? The cumulative updates. So all of the cumulative updates, as you'll see in a minute, that we're producing are inclusive of previous releases of the updates, right? Just makes it easier to keep up to date, stay caught up, and so on. And by going to this methodology, I really believe there will be a reduction in the number of hours spent by teams inside organizations picking and choosing which individual updates to apply. So when did this change start? So initially, this change began with Windows 10. Right? Server 2016 follows the same kind of structure as Windows 10. But it started with Windows 10. Right? This is the way patching was from the beginning with Windows 10. As of October 2016, we added this kind of structure, a little bit different naming, but same approach for Windows 7, 8.1, Server 2008 R2, 2012 R2. Should say Windows 7 SP1, right? And at first, whenever we released these updates, not everything was cumulative initially. Over time, we added in more. I haven't looked recently, but probably timing-wise, everything should be cumulative as of now. Pretty easy test to do to validate that. So I can't say with certainty, but it's been long enough, I would imagine, that we are cumulative by this stage on Windows 7, 8.1, these other older operating systems. So as we get into this discussion, let's level set on some terminology. What you see are the various terms that have been used to describe types of updates for the various things that we will release. So let's just kind of walk through these. So a critical update is one that's a widely released fix deals with a specific problem that addresses a critical non-security related bug, right? Definition updates. Those are widely released. Think of maybe endpoint protection in this way, right? Things that need to be released to update a definition database. That's what these are, right? Very frequent releases, at least in the case of endpoint protection. So drivers. Drivers are updates to your system, the different driver software iterations that manage your hardware. Now for ConfigMgr, we removed the ability to deploy drivers as of Configuration Manager 2012. As of recently, in Configuration Manager Current Branch, we have added back the ability to deploy Surface drivers, but that's the only place. WSUS still has the driver category. You can still deploy drivers with WSUS if you choose, but in ConfigMgr it's been deprecated. Feature packs. So this is where we introduce new functionality, not currently in a distributed version of the product, anticipated to make it into the next full version of the product with Windows 10 and the cadence of releases that we have there. Probably not going to see very many feature packs coming out to supplement the operation or the functionality of the OS like we did historically, but that is still an update category that we consider. Security updates. So this is a big one, right? We have released a number of security updates. That's what Configuration Manager and admins are typically worried about in the environment. So this is an update widely released to fix product-specific security-related vulnerability in Windows, right? Service packs. So those between version cumulative sets of hot fixes, security updates, critical updates, and just general updates, right? So the service pack approach really applicable to some of the legacy OSs with the way we're doing Windows 10. That really isn't a factor going forward. A tool type update, utility feature that helps complete a task or set of tasks are available in update rollup. So this would be a tested cumulative set of hotfixes, security updates, critical updates, that are packaged together for easy deployment. And then we have the last three. And these last three are where we're going to focus for the remainder of the session. So we have, in general terms, security-only updates. So what these are, it's an update we release every month and contains all of the security-related updates for the given month, and you can deploy that one update and be up to speed on all of the security fixes released that month. The key is a security-only update is not cumulative. It is something you do need to manage month by month. Compare that to a monthly roll-up update, and this is a tested cumulative set of updates that includes both security and reliability updates. If this is what you're deploying, then you don't ever have to deploy security-only updates again. As long as you keep the monthly roll-up deployed and current and so on, you're covered completely for all of the security updates. And then finally, we have a preview of monthly roll-ups. Again, this is, a preview of the monthly roll-up. So just in general terms to describe this, you'll see it implemented a little bit differently in a minute. But basically, this is a tested cumulative set of new updates that are packaged together. The plan is to distribute them the next month. These are non-security updates, so essentially quality updates that are being planned. This update does contain everything previous to what's in this update, so it is cumulative to that level, minus the security updates for the month coming up. All right. So now let's keep going with a bit of terminology. This starts to get a little bit more focused on specifically what happens by operating system, by type of update. So we'll start with Windows 10. Server 2016-2, really this is the easiest one to kind of visualize, understand. Everything here is cumulative. In some of the cases in a minute, you'll see how we kind of split things out with other operating systems and so on. Really not necessary for Windows 10, just for a couple of different reasons. One being kind of the nature of the way Windows 10 works and the support lifecycle and so on. But it's the easiest one, cumulative, right? Both for Windows 10 and for Server 2016. You'll see that in just a minute. Then we added support for Windows 7 SP1. Windows 8.1, Server 2008 R2, 2012 R2. Here we have iterations of updates that are both standalone and cumulative. So for the standalone model, this would be the security-only quality update, right? This contains all of the security fixes for that month. It is not cumulative. It is published using a security updates classification and, like other updates like you would expect, released on Patch Tuesday, Update Tuesday. Now, I'll call that out. I'm going to call that out for each one of these. I didn't call it out for Windows 10. Windows 10 released on Update Tuesday. Because I'll give you a couple of examples in a minute of update releases that are not on the traditional Patch Tuesday. Then we have cumulative updates. So here we have our security monthly quality rollup. So this is all new security fixes for that month, all previous fixes before that month, both security and non-security. It is released on Update Tuesday as well. It does have a security updates classification, right? And then finally, there's the monthly quality preview. So as mentioned, this is a preview of non-security fixes that are planned to be released in the next monthly cycle, right? It does have a cumulative nature, includes all the fixes that were previously released. Since this is a preview and is not specifically focused for security updates, it is published using an updates classification. And here's where we get into the difference. This one is not released on Patch Tuesday, Update Tuesday. This is released 1 week after Patch Tuesday. So the third Tuesday of the month is when this one will be released. And so this is really good. This kind of preview update strategy is really good for those organizations that are very aggressive deploying updates, and they want to see as early as possible how an update will affect production environment and so on. That's great. Just finish your patching cycle, then the next week go ahead and deploy the preview, and you'll know what's coming. Start to get experience with what's coming the next cycle minus the security updates. Okay? So that's Windows 10 and then all the other operating systems we support. There are two other specific update sections that we need to deal with. The first is Internet Explorer. So this has gone through a bit of change over time. We initially, prior to our change, would include the Internet Explorer updates in the releases labeled as security only. So the monthly rollout. So the monthly combination of security patches, right? As of February 2017, we stopped doing that. So the Internet Explorer updates are no longer included in the security-only updates. They are included in the cumulative updates, right? So it was only the security-only updates where we split that out. So again, security-only and monthly roll-ups will continue to contain fixes for Internet Explorer for the various supported releases of the operating systems, right? So what does that mean? Well, Internet Explorer 11 is supported for all operating systems currently in support except for Server 2012. Internet Explorer 10 is the supported version of IE for Server 2012. So that's kind of how we split things out. Regardless of what version of IE you have on your system, we will only update the version that's there. There were some concerns initially raised about, hey, will you upgrade my version of IE from one level to the next? No, we're going to look at what's there, and we will not install or upgrade any additions, just patch what's already installed. Okay? And then finally, there's .NET. So .NET, and one thing, just to again specify, you see it on the graphic, but IE only cumulative. Nothing standalone is released there, right? Okay. So for .NET Framework, we have both standalone and cumulative options. So for the standalone, we have security-only updates. This contains all new fixes for that month. Again, not cumulative. It is released on Update Tuesday, Patch Tuesday. For the cumulative options, we have the security and quality roll-up. That's released on Patch Tuesday as well. all new security fixes for that month, all fixes from the previous rollup. We have a quality preview, which is like the other previews. It's a view into the non-security fixes that are pending for the next monthly rollup. Includes all fixes previous to that as well, security, non-security. This one is again released 1 week after Update Tuesday, so the third Tuesday of every month, right? And then we have the third option here, which is the quality updates for Windows 10 release. So this contains all security and quality updates from the previous rollups, plus updates that are released specifically for Windows 10 systems. So this one is viewed, if you read some of the articles out there, you'll see the .NET team talks about how Windows 10 is the first place they will release their patches for .NET. And that gives them some time to make sure that they get feedback and so on, be able to fix any other updates that go out. The key to this is that these updates are released 2 weeks after Patch Tuesday. So that would put these on the fourth Tuesday of every month that these are released. Again, targeting Windows 10 first, right? And then the other operating systems will follow after that based on feedback. And then there is always the potential that we would have an out-of-band update release just to cover something that we don't want to wait for the monthly cycles to take over. All right. So all of that said, hopefully it makes sense and kind of helps illustrate how things work a little bit. Let's look at how this works in the console. So I'm in my ConfigMgr console now under my software library, and just want to show a couple of things. If I look at all the software updates, first thing is I can filter, and I will, just to hone in on Windows 10. So I'm going to click on Product, add that in. And I want to just look at my Windows 10 updates. So let's go find that here. Great. And do a search. So now you're going to see that there's a number of Windows 10 updates that come up. You see the Adobe Flash Player, etc. What I want to focus in on are certain types of updates, specifically the cumulative month-to-month update. So I'll search on cumulative update for Windows 10, version 1607 for x64, just to be able to make sure I filter on this the way that I want to. Right? So you see the various cumulative updates that are in my system available for Windows 10 version 1607. Now, the number of updates that you keep in your system will depend on some of the settings you have for how things get expired and so on, right? But you see, I have at least 6 months, okay? And then I have another cumulative update down here as well. So if I go look at this and add, so you may not have the superseded and the expired columns added. If you don't, go ahead and add them, because this is a really good visual way to kind of see how the cumulative model works. So you see all of these different updates. They're all Windows 10. Every single one of them are superseded except for the top one, right? Now, because of the way I have my expiration settings configured, I could still deploy these. But the point is, I don't need to. I can just deploy this one, and it will contain every single update previous to it, right? Because it's cumulative. I can further prove that by looking at the properties of my update and looking at the supersedence information tab, and I will see that nothing supersedes this update yet. Next month there will be one that does, and this one supersedes all of the rest. Right? All right. So good visual cue to be able to look at that. So again, just need to install the most recent one. Let's shift over to Windows 7 now. Again, notice the name. You'll see the name of the Windows 10 updates. Very similar name in Windows 7, though a little bit different. So let's focus on Windows 7. And you would see the same with Windows 8, but I'll just do Windows 7. So I'll search for that. Well, first of all, I won't hit anything because of this. So let me just search on Windows 7 by itself, no other filter first. I'm going to search on that. And what you'll notice is that you're going to get a tremendous number of updates. One of the other filter fields that would be good to have, if you don't have it added, would be a good idea to add it, would be the date released, right? you will notice, even alluded to it already, there are some changes that have occurred, not many, but a couple that have occurred over time with the way we're deploying updates. Plus, this is Windows 7. And so you will have a number of historical updates available standalone that you don't probably need to look at anymore. So just look at the recent updates. And so you'll see, for example, if I scroll down, that there are a number of standalone updates that are available for Windows 7 that I don't need to really think about probably that much anymore, and so forth, right? Security updates, that kind of thing. So if we just focus on the top level updates, the most recent ones, you'll start to see the different types of updates I'm talking about. Here's the preview of the monthly quality. Here's the security monthly quality roll-up. Here's the security only down here, right? We'll focus on that in a minute. So let me filter this view to make it even more honed in, right? So if I look for security monthly quality roll-up for Windows 7 for x64, if I typed all that right, then I'll get some that show up. Let's see. There we go. So they did pop in. And so like before, just to demonstrate these are cumulative, you can kind of already see it here. And you notice that there's been a change in the way we're labeling these from maybe a date to just the number format and so on, right? 417 changes to 517 and so on. But you scroll over to the right and you see the same pattern. All of these updates were superseded by the current one. So you know those are cumulative and can be deployed as such. What about those that are not cumulative, right? Well, so let's filter on a view there. So if I get rid of this and do a security only quality update for Windows 7 for x64, and look at that, see what comes up. All right, so we do see that we have the security only, kind of an interesting visual here, staggering Windows 7 and so on. But anyway, you see the same date formatics change here, right? Which is what caused that little bit staggering. Anyway, don't want to get off in the weeds on that. But you see that these are all security only. And if you scroll to the right, you see that none of them are superseded. None of them are expired, right? Because they are month by month and so forth out there. All right, so if you do choose to go the security only route, you will be needing to make sure that not only the current month's updates are deployed, but previous months as well. Okay, so let's just stay on Windows 7 as our product, and let's focus in just to show, and I'll do this quickly so it doesn't get tedious. So, show the .NET update. So if I search for security and quality roll-up for .NET framework and say 3.5.1, all right, so this will include everything. And just like with IE, we're not going to upgrade anything on the system. We're just going to patch it. Same thing with .NET. We're not going to upgrade anything on the system. We're going to patch what version you have. And so you see the security and quality roll-up for .NET, right? And so on. And you can see, again, what's superseded, what's not, just by scrolling to the right and so forth. These are out there, right? Cool. All right, so there's also a security-only version of .NET, just like there is the roll-up here. So if I look for security-only for .NET, hopefully that will find it. And there we are, right? So these are the security-only. Same kind of thing, right? Not trying to belabor the point too much, but just illustrate what the updates are. And then finally, I'll stay with Windows 7 as well as the product and just search for the Internet Explorer update. So IE is only released as cumulative. again, can't type and talk at the same time. So hopefully I got that right. Cumulative security update for Internet Explorer 11 for Windows 7 64. Looks right to me. No items found. Cumulative. Let me check the text again. Ah, I see it. There's an extra E here. Let me fix that. And do the search again. And we'll get the Internet Explorer updates that are available. Again, cumulative here, and so on. And you can see the same kind of the same kind of pattern of supersedence over here, right? So not to belabor the point too much, just wanted to illustrate that, and so on. So what about what are the considerations that we would need to have, with this new approach to updating? So security-only cumulative update supersedence. This is one that's been taken care of. It was resolved as of December 2016. But the issue here is when we first released the two different types of updates, the security-only and the cumulative, there was a supersedence conflict. So it was really intended to be helpful to say what would happen is the cumulative updates would supersede the security-only, which was really kind of a mechanism to say, look, if you're deploying the cumulative, it's not necessary to deploy the security only. The net effect in ConfigMgr is, again, depending on settings, when you had the cumulative updates come out, that immediately superseded the security only. The security only were expired, right? And couldn't really be deployed. So that was resolved. Now both kind of stand alone. Just the point here is kind of the second bullet. Since you see both the security only and the cumulative updates that are both available to deploy, should you deploy security only? Should you deploy the cumulative? Should you deploy both? And the answer is, if you're deploying cumulative, that's all you need. You don't need the security only. If you're only focused on security patches, then you need the security only. Another consideration, the way that the cumulative update structure changes things, the metadata on these updates really has grown. Right? So initially, whenever we had every update standalone, the metadata would describe the details about just that update. Now, with everything being cumulative, especially on the cumulative updates, the metadata on those updates is quite large, right? And so there were some initial challenges where WSUS wasn't handling that well. Versions that are out there now that are supported should be fine. The only comment here is always a good idea to make sure you have the latest fixes and so on for your WSUS and Windows Update Agent infrastructure. And then finally, increased update size is an issue, especially trying to download to your endpoints over and over and over again, right? So that's where the next session will come into play, and that is specifically to talk about the express update option available in ConfigMgr, in not just ConfigMgr, in Windows Update to help streamline some of that update deployment for the cumulative Windows 10 update. So we'll talk about that next time, and we will